Oftentimes on this channel, especially while opening older packs full of cards that really haven't seen a lot of play, you'll hear me say something along the lines of, well, this card isn't very good, but I like the artwork a lot. For example, if I opened a pack that had a bunch of Cloudians in it, I wouldn't say that these cards are insanely powerful, but I would note that I really like the artwork. Those cards look really cool even if they're not that great. Aesthetics matter in card games. You want to have the ability to glance at a card's artwork and instantly know what it is. Sometimes even good cards look really cool. Brilliant Fusion, for example, has beautiful artwork in my opinion. It looks even better in the higher rarities like Secret Rare and especially Ultimate Rare, although this is all subjective. Lost World is a card that, while I wouldn't call beautiful, I think is really cool and features a lot of older dinosaur cards that maybe didn't see a lot of play, and features them in a card's artwork that actually did see a lot of competitive success. Even right up until now, it's still seeing play. In Yu-Gi-Oh, you have a lot of different subjective means for sort of reviewing how good a card looks. In today's video, I'm going to talk about some aesthetically pleasing Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but I'm going to do it in one specific way. I posted on Twitter a few days ago about aesthetically pleasing Yu-Gi-Oh Link monsters, and what I mean by this isn't necessarily cards artwork that I like a lot. I mean, that certainly helps, but I wanted to go through and look at some Link monsters that just by their artwork, you should be able to tell where their Link arrows actually point to. To me at least, it's really exciting when Konami can take the artwork of a card, something that doesn't actually have an effect on gameplay, and combine it with the actual mechanics of how the effects, or in this case, how the Link arrows actually work in the game. Many of the cards I mentioned in today's video will come from your guys' suggestions on Twitter, but I do want to start off with the one card that I thought of that really made me want to do this discussion. Relinquished Anima is from Dual Overload, so really recently released, and this card is hilarious. I love its artwork. It's upside down. How can you not love that? There are not a lot of upside down Yu-Gi-Oh cards, but for this one in particular, it works perfectly. Not only is it hilariously cool looking, but also it really works with the effect and the Link arrow. This takes one level 1 monster to make, except a token, and it says you can target one face-up monster this card points to, equip that face-up monster to this card, maximum 1. You can only use this effect of Relinquish Anima once per turn. This card gains attack equal to that equipped monsters. Now, could this card work if the artwork was flipped right side up? I mean, certainly yes, but it's way cooler this way and it works perfectly. It even has a point at the very top of the artwork, which would be the bottom of the monster itself, and that's exactly where the Link marker is. This works really well too because the effect actually deals with the Link arrow. It's not just for show, and it all kind of goes together for a really neat package. Relinquish Anima just in general is a great card, and I expect a lot of decks playing level 1 monsters to actually use it. While Link Rebo has pretty much been the go-to monster for getting rid of level 1s off the field for free, and it also has a pretty decent effect, I feel like Relinquished Anima is actually a close second and really punishes your opponent for not positioning around it. Next up we have Junk Connector, and this is one of the most highly suggested cards on that tweet. So not only does this card really clearly show you where the Link arrows should be, it also kind of creates this illusion of an extended artwork, and you'll see what I mean right here. The arrows go right next to the red sort of flames or the red jets coming off of this card's bottom half, but also the background of this card is blue, so it really does look like an extended artwork. You have the blue background extending into the Link monster sort of background of all Link monsters, and then you have the red of the card artwork going right into those Link arrows. Now, as far as how good this card is, it's okay, I guess. It's fine. It's sort of like a baby needle fiber, but never really saw that much competitive play. But oh man, did Konami really think about this artwork and where the arrow should point. Kudos to them. I think this is one of the best examples, and one of the best examples that you guys gave on that tweet. I honestly forgot this card existed entirely, so I really appreciate all the suggestions that said to mention this one in today's video. Gravity Controller was one of the greatest cards out of Ignition Assault, super impactful at tournaments, and the artwork is fantastic. It has a very different sort of style than we've seen on Yu-Gi-Oh cards, especially with the angle. Yu-Gi-Oh cards, for the most part, you're looking at the monster card straight on. Spell and trap cards get to experiment a lot more with perspective, but as far as monster cards go, not so much. So already Gravity Controller has really great artwork, but where it really shines here is how well it transitions into the actual Link arrow and the Link mechanic. The arrow, as is to be expected by looking at this card, it's only going to be in one of two spots. It's either going to be at the feet or at the head. That is the natural thing here, but I think it makes the most sense for the feet, because that just really looks well. The feet of this card are right in the corner of the artwork, so it combines perfectly with a bottom left-hand arrow on this card. The card itself is great. It takes one non-link monster in the extra monster zone, commonly a Shaddoll fusion monster or something along those lines, and it can't be used as link material to turn it as link summon, which is kind of a downside. But more importantly, this card in the extra monster zone cannot be destroyed by battle with a monster in the main monster zone, and at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster in the extra monster zone, you can return both that opponent's monster and this card to the deck. That is fantastic. Two really great effects. If your opponent only has cards in the main monster zone, they just can't get rid of this thing because it won't be destroyed by battle. Sure, they can still do damage, but they'll have a really hard time getting it off the field. If they do summon a monster in the extra monster zone, then this is just going to bounce it right back to the extra deck. It's sort of like a Neospatian Grand Mole that you don't have to normal summon and actually helps further your combos. I've seen a couple people talk about if this card will be played in Master Rule 5, and I believe it absolutely will. No, you don't need it to take the fusion monster out of the extra monster zone anymore to continue summoning from the extra deck, but the effect is still so valuable that I expect it to see a lot of play in the upcoming format. We've already spent a little bit of time talking about a card from Dual Overload, Relinquished Anima, but I'm going to talk about another one. The Reptilian Link 2 monster is great. Well, the artwork is, at least. I haven't seen a lot of discussion around this card, but the artwork is fantastic, and what I really like about this card is that it takes advantage of some link arrows that are very unconventional. We've seen a lot of monsters with link arrows that have a bottom left hand corner and a bottom right hand corner arrow, and that's fine, and you can do some cool stuff with that, but this card really takes advantage of those weird link arrows, and it shows them perfectly with the hand motions in the artwork. I'm not sure if this card is actually going to see competitive success, but I really can appreciate the time and thought put into the artwork compared to the link arrows. With all of these cards in today's video, but especially this one because it has some of the strangest arrows on a link monster, I really want to know what came first. Did they make the artwork and then decide, okay, we should put the link arrows where the hands are, or did they make the link arrows for the mechanics of the card and then someone said, oh, I can make a really interesting character to fit those arrows perfectly? I don't have the answer. I probably will never get the answer, but it's still something cool to think about. Honestly, I have no idea what Topologic Zero Boros is supposed to be. It is clearly a very fantastical creation that doesn't really resemble anything that we have in real life. It's sort of like a moth or a butterfly, but a machine version, or I guess a Cybers version, but by looking at the artwork alone, you can guess pretty easily where the link arrows will point. The link arrows on this card in general are really interesting. Having all the corners as link arrows is not something that we see very often, but in this one case where we do see it, we see a really cool artwork to complement those arrows. This makes sense to me because this card, I guess, was featured prominently in the anime, so it would make a lot of sense to make the artwork really cool and really stand out, and this card is great. It was commonly played in pretty much any deck playing IP Masquerena, but especially Orcus strategies, and even right now, Orcus are looking really good, and almost every single deck list is still going to include this card. Next up, we have the Salmon Great Structure Deck version of Salmon Great Helio. Now, I am not a fan of the original artwork. I think it's kind of messy. I think it makes Helio look really weird, but the Structure Deck artwork I can really get on board with. Not only does the card look cooler, but you can also guess where the link arrows are just by looking at the picture. As for how good this card actually is, I'm sure you guys are aware it's obviously very competitive. It is a staple 2 of in virtually every single topping Salmon Great deck list that I've ever seen in my life, and it's probably going to stay that way forever. It's really good to summon the first time, but even better to summon the second time on top of the first one for free. This is one of the many cards in Salmon Greats that helps the deck just destroy back row strategies. Not only can you recycle this card over and over again with Jack Jaguar, you can also use cards like Salmon Great Foxy to rip through back row even more. Salmon Greats were one of the strategies that I played for quite a while. I played them for several months and then helped my friend out with his build even up until this day, so I'm very familiar with this strategy and very familiar with Salmon Great Helio, and I always appreciated the artwork. Lastly, we have TG Trident Launcher, and if you're like me, you probably haven't heard of this card in a while or even thought about it in a while because, yeah, it kind of flopped. It was one of the worst secret rares out of Savage Strike and doesn't compare to things like Phantasme or Extravagance or even some of the other bad secret rares out of that set. However, the arrows for this card go perfectly with the artwork. This thing could have had arrows in a couple spots, but I think lining up the arrows with several of the limbs of this card, the left arm arm and both of the legs is a really cool idea. It grounds all of them, and it obviously works really well with the effect because it's summoning TG monsters to where it points, so you would want to have 3 downward pointing arrows. That just makes the most sense. This is one of those rare cases where the arrows and the artwork as well as the mechanics of the card's effect all come together as one and really create a really nice package. It's a real shame then that this card isn't very good, but at least we can appreciate how cool the artwork is and how well it goes with the rest of the card. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's discussion video. I know it was a little bit different. It's not going to appeal to every type of audience member out there, but this is something that really matters to me. You know, I've talked about artwork in the past. We had those videos about 7-colored fish and Pot Agreed Being Alive. This really is important to me, at least, because someone actually does have to sit down and design the artwork for these cards. It's not all just about the effects and all about the mechanics of the cards, and I feel like even though it's not the biggest reason to be a fan of a strategy, in a lot of cases when you like a deck a lot, part of the reason is going to be the artwork that you can identify with, that you enjoy looking at, because if you're going to be playing a deck a lot, you probably want to at least enjoy what the cards actually look like. No, you're not going to make your decision for a competitive tournament based on which cards look the prettiest or which cards look the coolest, but if you start to like a deck a lot, you'll probably enjoy the artwork as well. I'll see you guys later though. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.